Hey everybody, today we are going to be doing another J Play segment, and this time we're going to cover the last of the big three decks for 2004, which is going to be Blaziken EX. Now, I've already covered Blaziken in my list in a previous video, so I will make sure to link that down below. But today, I'm going to take this deck, I'm going to take my list, and we are going to play 5 games with it and just see how we do against some other decks in the format. I'm going to go ahead and break down my strategies and my thought processes when I'm playing these games and how I'm approaching different matchups. And the idea is to give you a better understanding of, I guess, how to play the deck if you haven't played Blaziken before, and my thought processes on things, and hopefully give you a little bit more insight to the deck and, like I said, how I play the deck and how I make decisions with the deck. Beyond that, I do want to say that the list that I'm using for the video is the list I used when I broke the deck down, and then the list I've got right here on the screen. But that being said, though, too, I do think Blaziken is a deck that has a lot of room for personal preference choices in it, and I think there's a lot of different things you can do with the deck. So, I think you can make really good arguments for playing Magneton. I think you can make really good arguments for playing Team Aqua's Manectric as well. And I think one of the things that Chris Fulop said, and when he ended up second at Worlds with Blaziken and played the Manectric, and I've said it in the past before too, was that I've always felt like Team Aqua's Manectric was more of a win card. And I guess I should say Fulop said Team Aqua's Manectric was more of a win card, and I agreed with him. It was just a card that it's a good card, but it always felt like the games you got that rolling were games you were going to win anyways. I'm going to say, though, the more I've built 2004, the more I've tested 2004, and as other decks started getting more refined as well, because I'll say Chris Fulop had an absolutely outstanding Blaziken in 2004. It was well above other decks in the format, or where other decks in the formats were at. And I feel as other decks have gotten, in the format, have gotten better, I do feel that Team Aqua's Manectric, I no longer see it, I guess, as a win more card. I actually do see it as a very, very viable and very strong option for the deck. I think as other decks in the format have gotten better, its usefulness has gone up dramatically. And like I said, I think it's just another option. I think there's pros and cons to Magneton. I think there's pros and cons to Team Aqua's Manectric. I think you can make arguments for and against playing Rayquaza. You can make arguments for and against playing a larger line of Rayquaza. Same thing with the Blossom. I think you can make arguments for or against Blossom. You can even make arguments to play more copies of Ditto. There's definitely arguments you can make in the energy lineup. I think Warp Energy is absolutely outstanding in the deck as well. I just cut the copy for space here, but I think there's a ton of different things that you can do with the deck. And I think there's a ton of different ways to play the deck successfully. So hopefully with this video, you'll get a little bit more insight into my list and the way that I play the deck. But yeah, I just wanted to put that all out there. But let's go ahead and just jump into some games here. Alright, so we get an okay hand. Yeah, I shouldn't say okay, this is actually a really good hand. Turn 2, Blaziken EX is incredibly good, along with Supporter to get us a new hand. Opponent does double set, keeps their hand size down to 5, makes me a little nervous. Go for the Singe, we get heads. Opening double Dunsparce I think is really weird. I don't know why you would open double Dunsparce here. Usually you prioritize your bench a little bit more heavily. So it does have the Water Energy. Water Energy always makes me think Swampert, but it could be one in a million things. It can't be a million things, but it could be a couple of different decks. However, I think this is the same Walrun deck we played earlier, or same Walrun opponent we played earlier, so I am expecting another Walrun rematch for us. And it looks like it is. He's playing, we see a Bellsprout, Spiel, and a Corphish. Now, we do get a near perfect start here with a turn 2 Blaziken EX knockout, along with the Copycat for a new hand. That being said, though, it's against a Walrun deck. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong here. We are weak to water. He does play Desert Ruins, so I'm certainly, while I'm confident, and I know we got a good start, I'm absolutely not feeling like we've won this game yet. The thing that does make me a little bit more confident here is the fact that I don't see any sort of consistency engine out of him. We don't see a Skitty, we don't see a Delcatty. He is basically relying completely on supporters to set up. That double Dunsparce, I don't like it, double Dunsparce opening, but in this case it is actually going to pay off for him. Best case scenario for him, I think, is going to be like a Desert Ruins and some Sudden Flash Heads. Plays an Oracle, so not bad for him, but it's not going to get him anywhere this turn. If he does get some Sudden Flash Heads, he could put us in a rough spot. We hold the Rayquaza because we don't want to leave ourselves more vulnerable to Desert Ruins than we already are. The thing that's hurting me a little bit, though, is while I do have supporters, those copycats are just so weak when he has such a small hand himself. So he goes for the Sun Flash Heads. He does flip tails. Very fortunate for us. We do get the combustion. I'm debating the copycat here, and I do go ahead and go for it. I think there's some arguments for and against that. If I think he put a Steven's Advice on top of his deck or something like that, it would have been better for me to hold it. I didn't have a whole lot of incentive to play it there. I had my energy drop for the turn. I had the combustion in play. It's just, do I think he's going to make a play that's going to get him more cards? And he copycats for 3, so no, he didn't have any better play than what I had here. Really, really surprising to me that he didn't put a Steven's Advice on top of his deck. Crawdon's a very interesting tech. I don't think it's bad for the deck at all. 50 just isn't great. 60 does help you hit some better math. We're going to go ahead, take the Celio knockout there. He brings up Bellsprout, and at this point he's just sacrificing things to us. I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm going to go ahead, go for the Blossom. This is going to help me play around an ATM Rock. And then we do have the knockout with Blaze Kick, and then we're going to have the Volcanic Ash on the following turn. So all in all, pretty darn good for us. The Oracle is also going to help us. Thankfully, he was an energy shy on that, and we will be able to Volcanic Ash for the win. I think one of the things here that I do want to talk about with this game was props to our opponent for trying new things, trying a new deck, trying different ways to make Walrun successful. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I like some of the techs. I'm testing a Walrun deck right now. I do play Victory Bell in it. I think it's a great addition to the deck. I don't have the Crawdon in there, but I do like how that affects your math and how that helps you out. I'm going to say, though, that I think the biggest thing for us that helped us win that game, and the thing that hurt our opponent the most, is the fact that he didn't have any sort of consistency engine in there. And when I'm testing Walrun right now, I'm playing the Delcatty Magneton engine, and I find that with a lot of rogue decks on the ladder, like the Beedrill deck I covered earlier. And it's just the fact that I see so many really, really cool deck ideas and so many really cool different strategies people try. But the one thing that I think that people miss is they just don't have the consistency engine. And I think if our opponent was playing that Delcatty Magneton engine, would have had some better draw powers, would have been able to set up a little bit faster, a little bit better, I think they would have had a much better shot in that matchup. Now, don't get me wrong, we got an absolutely insanely broken start in that game, but it was the broken start from us combined with the fact that our opponent just never was able to get anything really going, and I think that Delcatty Magneton engine would have helped him a lot set up and been able to get back in the game a lot better than what he was able to do not playing it. So, great game by our opponent. I enjoy seeing the different techs, the different strategies. I like his deck. Like I said, I just would probably try to add a consistency engine in there. All right, so starting off here, we missed the energy drop. That's unfortunate, but we are looking at a turn 2 Blaziken EX.
Ideally, we go second here so we can get the copycat off. Hopefully, hit an energy. Good. Our opponent does go first, and then the Skitty Friend Ball are both going to be really good options before the copycats. We'll be able to play most of our hand down before we swap out here. All right, so the Numble makes me think we're playing against a Team Magma deck, but then the Dunsparce Water Energy gets a little bit more, makes it a little more interesting. Thankfully, our opponent still has a 5-card hand. It gives us some options. As long as we hit an energy here, we're good. We do hit 2. Feeling pretty good at this point. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is what I think our opponent is doing, is they're using a Team Magma's Camerupt as energy acceleration for some sort of plan, and I actually don't think this is the worst thing in the world. I do think there's some stuff that you could put Camerupt into. Is it going to be as good as some of your other options, like, say, teching in a Blaziken line, teching in a, I guess you could even do like a Swampert Magneton thing in other decks? Probably not, but we'll have to see what our opponent is doing here. They're expecting us to get the knockout, so they're benching a second Dunsparce. Doing a strike and run here, so we'll see what they are actually playing. And they are doing a Walrun deck, which this is a little unusual. Looks like they're going to be using Delcatty to discard the energy, Team Magma's Camerupt to get it back. We'll have to see if what they use to switch it. We'll get a very quick turn 2 knockout there, which is awesome. This is ideal Blaziken start. You couldn't do any better than this. I did hold that energy with Delcatty. That was one thing I was not a fan of. I couldn't risk not having that energy. Same thing this turn. I just could not risk not having that energy, the energy attachment to get a turn 4 Volcanic Ash. I valued more highly than I did getting the energy draw off. And you could argue that's right or wrong. I don't know, but well, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I don't know. Obviously, that's how I valued it. Just with our opponent's slower start, we're taking early prizes. I value the Volcanic Ash higher. Our opponent has no real threat on the board. So, and we have a copycat if stuff does start going crazy. But yeah, I think I made the right call on that. Opponent's just going Sudden Flash again here. This is where we are going to have that energy draw. I think we just put 2 fires on top of the deck. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to be able to switch your Warp Point. Going to go ahead and do the Warp Point, bring up the Torchic, and then retreat that back to the Blaziken EX, and then probably either knock out a Spiel or take a Delcatty prize here. I think either is, or a Skitty prize. Either is okay. I could even see a slight argument knocking out the Dunsparce, but yeah, we will go ahead and take it the Spiel knockout. And at this point, too, our fire starters are that fire starter Blaziken on the bench is going to be a very, very, very live card. And we can't Volcanic Ash. If we get a rare candy, if we get a Blaziken, we can get the Volcanic Ash next turn. But at the same time, too, I think just at this point, we're already up 3 prizes. Just taking a prize in general is very good. And all our opponent's doing is Oracling. And I think that's one of the things you see with Walrun a lot is they want to play like a very high Oracle count, like 4 Oracles. But at the exact same time, Oracle's really not that... Oracle's really not that great for their deck. Or, I'm sorry, Oracle is very good for their deck, but the problem is Oracle is not a great card when you're behind, like in situations like this. I do think that Copycat for me might have been a little presumptuous. I think I probably should have waited a turn, knowing that my opponent most likely put a Steven's Advice on top of my deck. Everything was going very smoothly. I didn't really need anything, so I think I probably could have safely waited a turn there to Copycat for a much larger hand size. I do believe we also prize the Magnemite this game. And not having the ability to get those energy back is a little iffy for me. I'm not a huge fan of that right now. So it's a little bit harder for me to get consistent energy draws off than I would with other decks like, say, Gardevoir or Swampert. Playing just a 1-1 Magneton line versus playing a thicker 2-2 line, you do see a noticeable drop in consistency in these sort of games where you do end up prizing part of the 1-1 line. So attaches a water energy. He goes in crushing draws. Or no, the crushing draw is the... I think he just did a blind crushing draw and he hit it. Yep, and then he attaches an energy for turn. Sun Flash misses the Sun Flash. Barricade the Blossom. He'll dance the Blaziken. And I think at this point we are so far ahead. I'm feeling pretty confident we can take that last prize regardless of what happens here. We might even just be setting up a second Blaziken EX because I think the right play here is going to be to knock out the Delcatty. Oh, yeah, we're just going to go switch Fire Energy. Opponent would need Desert Ruin, Strength Charm to knock us out. I just find that pretty unlikely. Go ahead, take that Delcatty prize. Yeah, we're up so many cards right now. We're up so many prizes right now. Everything is fine. Does another blind crushing draw. Misses this one. Plays a copycat. Wow, must not have had the energy. Gets a little desperate there. Plays the Desert Ruin, so they did have that. Did have the energy. If they have a String Charm in hand, that would be the most wild, crazy set of cards I've ever seen. Come out in a turn for a 3-card hand, but they do not. Go ahead, get the Steven's Advice. We're going to switch. Yep, and then we're going to have that Volcanic Ash for the knockout there. And this is just this. Oh, and this is honestly just the strength of getting that turn 2 Blaziken EX. It's so hard for decks to answer with that really early pressure. We're just taking very quick, easy early knockouts. On top of that, we're adding more energy. We're taking Volcanic Ash knockouts and anything we want on the bench while still setting up behind that Blaziken EX. And that's just out of all three. Yeah, just that turn 2 Blaziken EX is so much harder to answer. Turn 2 Gardevoir EX can kind of do the same thing, and I guess turn 2 Swampert to an extent. But yeah, just turn 2 Blaziken EX is so hard to answer. It puts so much pressure on them to try to find something for it. And we were able just to ride that to victory. Very tough spot for our opponent here, but very, very lucky and fortunate hands for us, and we ended up getting one out of it. All right, so we get an okay Blaziken opening here. We do have the Torchic. Start with the possibility of a turn 2 lunge. We also have the Delcatty in hand, so if we're able to find a Dunsparce or a Friend Ball, we will be able to get a Dunsparce and set up pretty consistently, and then the Copycat's going to give us some new hand options. Now, it looks like we're playing against a Swampert deck. If you look at just the matchup, you would think this favors Swampert really, really, really heavily, but the reality of the situation is this is actually a pretty close matchup, and the 2 Mulligans definitely make me feel a little bit better. Seeing that Friend Ball also makes me feel a little bit better here. So we're going to go ahead. Now we can either grab a Delcatty or a Dunsparce here. We got some different options. Or a Skitty or a Dunsparce. I really don't hate either. We go ahead and we are going to go the aggressive route here and just go for the Delcatty. You'll notice that I do use the Lightning Energy to Singe there, so I can discard the Fire Energy with Delcatty. We do get the heads on the Singe, and then he does flip tail, so we do get 20 damage. And we'll see if he switches here. Now, I really would have grabbed a Magnemite if I was him. So we do have the turn 2 lunge, Copycat for a new hand. The reason I didn't want to play the multi down in the first part is I knew Rayquaza EX was going to be a big part of my strategy here. Or it was going to be a big in this game, and I wanted to save the multis for that. Get the turn 2 lunge head. This is actually really big because this does give us the energy to pair with the Oracle. Now, the line of play that I took is paying off for me here, but a far more consistent option would have been for me just to go the Dunsparce route. I went a little bit more aggressive because I know how rough of a matchup this can be, and I was a little bit more willing to take some risks. In hindsight, I don't know if that was a correct play. Like I said, I think the Dunsparce was probably slightly better, but we went with the combustion route this game. Opponent does get the energy down.
The Swampert EX really isn't too scary for me as Swampert EX isn't too scary for me as it is fighting and not actually a water type. We're going for the Torchic Blaziken. Go ahead, go for the energy draw here. And we miss the energy to attack. So this is going to be very rough for us. But picking up the rare candy is a nice consolation prize. And then we are just setting up that bench Rayquaza. We know that's going to come into play here. Now, I would have to double check the deck. I don't know why I wouldn't friend ball for a Magnemite of my own there. That was either a pretty big misplay from me or I prized the Magnemite. I'm not sure yet. Goes ahead and Elms. Grabs a regular Swampert here. Still, okay. Okay. Does he have the last Water Call? He's able to knock out the Combustion here. This could be huge for him. He misses it. Huge advantage for me. Great Steven's advice. If he would have had that last energy there, that could have been really rough. Thankfully, he didn't. We're just going to keep Fire Startering the Rayquaza EX on the bench. We go for the Blaze Kick. And he shouldn't... Well, he might be able to knock me out. 2 energies knocks me out. We will have the return with Rayquaza EX. If he misses the knockout here, we do have the Nurse play. This is some very fortunate situations from us. Like I said, I think a pretty big misplay from our opponent at the start, not getting a Magnemite off that first strike and run, and not being able to find a Magneton has really been hurting him here. He's got a small hand, has not played a supporter yet. Needs to find 2 energy. I do think the Magneton gets him there as well. What do we have? So best case scenario for me is he does not have the knockout. Beautiful. Really lucky for me. Not only we're going to completely nurse the Blaziken EX, get the knockout. Yeah, make sure we're clicking right there. So he does have the Magneton. Our opponent's playing a little bit interesting version here with Wally's training Underground Expedition. A little bit different than the Swampert list we're used to seeing here. Only thing that I've got myself into a little bit of trouble on here is I did fill my bench and I've only got 1 Firestarter Blaziken, so this could be a little bit of a tough spot for me. But thankfully it looks like I am going to be able to get the Blaziken out of the active spot. Okay, so instead, I don't play the Warp Point here. It looks like instead I just take the turn to Spiral Growth, knowing that I'm going to have the Volcanic Ash on the following turn. I'm not really too concerned about what my opponent has here. But he does have the Delcat Magneton engine. Getting the Magneton here is huge for him. That's going to give him quite a few options to be getting those extra energy in play. And he's just not really making any sort of aggressive play. It looks like that Rayquaza EX has completely walled him off. I'm going to go for the Warp Point here. In this matchup in particular, I'm going to want to make sure that I am targeting down the Magneton. That is going to be a major key to victory for my opponent. If he doesn't have the energy to play, he's not going to be able to really take advantage of those water calls or energy draws. Yep, so I definitely take out that Magneton. I have the Rayquaza EX on the bench to get at least 1 more prize.
Means I just got to be able to find one last prize, and I should be set here. Switch would also be a big card for me here. Alright, so he realizes how important that Magnemite is. I'm just going to keep putting energy on the Rayquaza. Go ahead and attach that to Blaziken. We're going to take the 75% chance that... and we prize the Magnemite. Okay, that's why we didn't go for it. We're going to take that 75% chance that we... Volcanic, or we can Blaziken here. Nope, we are going to play it safer. We switch... Go ahead and Dragon Burst. Take the prize. We have the Blaziken EX on the bench. We're going to have the win next turn unless our opponent does some crazy Pokemon reversals, sleep check heads. Even at that point, we're going to have some options. He's going to need a Crystal Shard to knock us out as well. The sleep could be a little annoying. So that's going to buy him some time. Alright, so he does get the sleep heads. I'm going to go ahead and Fire Starter here, just being safe. Probably still drop the energy off on the Rayquaza. Because I know my win condition is that Blaziken EX. And if my opponent does some crazy Pokemon reversal, sleep, and I can't wake up or something... Even if the Blaziken EX goes down, I want to make sure that I still have that Rayquaza EX to win the game with. The Rayquaza EX and the Blaziken EX are going to be my two paths to victory here. So he's playing the Wobbuffet. Still asleep. Not my... Rough for me, but once again, I'm sticking with the strategy here. The Wobbuffet's going to make things a little bit easier, but he can't reversal, like flip over the Blaziken EX for a knockout, so it's still... Point still stands. Alright, we finally wake up, take the Magneton, and get that final prize in there. All around, pretty picture-perfect game from us. It looks like there was a couple of rough spots from my opponent. I do think not getting the Magnemite right at the start there was probably what kind of started putting him down the wrong path there. That being said, though, too, it looks like just having a little bit of energy drought in there and missing those key energy to knock out that Blaziken EX was also pretty big. So, good start from us. Pretty unfortunate. A couple of rough turns from our opponent let us take that game there. Alright, so we open double Skitty. Skitty's not the worst opener in the world. The fact that we don't have any sort of supporter is making me a little bit nervous here. Opponent opens Magnemite. Plays down a Desert Ruins. As a Blaziken player, that's not what I want to see turn one. Do top the Dunsparce, get a couple more energy, thin our deck out here. There's pros and cons to this play. There's a strong argument I just should have lullabied here, so I don't give my opponent a larger copycat, which he did have. You can make arguments for both here. My line of thinking is I wanted to get that fire energy. I wanted to get into the discard pile quickly, and just start being able to have that energy there to use Fire Starter for. Now, the slapping down to Desert Ruins as soon as it comes in, as soon as you have it, there's pros and cons to that as well. Normally, I'm going to say that's probably the correct decision, especially like in the situation where my opponent had, where he saw the fire energy, probably made the read that I'm playing Blaziken, and knowing that most Blaziken decks are not going to play counter stadiums. Double checking here that we did indeed prize the Magnemite, highly unfortunate. But we do get triple Torchics. And at this point, we're not sitting great, but
it's not the worst situation for us in the world either. We're one Stevens Advice or one Copycat from really going off here. Stevens, if he'd fill his bench a little bit more. Our opponent, he's got a Magneton and a Skitty, so he's not exactly setting great either. Plays the Desert Shaman. Much better for us here. We get the Delcatty, still have the energy. Friend Ball is going to be awesome. Top deck the Rare Candy. And we are just going to be off to the races with this. Unfortunately, we did not get a second energy there, so we can't Blaze Kick this turn. If I had the energy, it's debatable. I would say Blaze Kick is probably the right play to put that early pressure on him, even with the Desert Ruins in play. But we are going to settle for just trying a Fire Stream approach with the regular Blaziken. Grass Energy, we still don't know what the opponent's playing. This could be Shiftry, it could be a Sceptile variant, a Vileplume variant. It could be something completely different. Go ahead, we do top the energy. Outstanding top deck from us, very fortunate there. Go ahead, Fire Stream, play the Warp Point, Fire Stream the Skitty. We wanted to take away that Delcatty option. And it also sets the Magneton up for being knocked out with another Fire Stream. And the opponent just looks like they had a rough start. Couldn't really get anything going. Okay, so apparently I missed the Magnemite. Do everything I can. Do I take the Stevens for one? We do take the Stevens for one. End up topping the energy. Really fortunate. Really fortunate draw from us to get the energy off the Stevens for one. Very gambling on my part, too. The thing that I messed up on was not grabbing the Magnemite right at the start. I don't know why I didn't grab it. I looked for it. I didn't see it. Unless I wasn't paying attention, that was one of the prizes or something right before he shaman. But yeah, I should have got the Magnemite right off the start. If I would have done that, I could have friend balled for the Magneton at that point. And then we would have had the Delcatty Magneton. Even if we did not, automatically with the Magneton, I would have had the energy there. And I would have had the Delcatty Magneton engine to continue setting up. As you can tell with Blaziken, you sometimes run into these situations where it's a little bit awkward with Delcatty, where you want an energy draw, but you don't always have the energy, and that's why I think partnering with Magneton just makes it so much easier. But, yeah, not necessarily a rough draw from our opponent. We had a couple of rough spots in that game, too. They just smoothed out a little bit better for us than our opponent had. So, GG, and on to the next game here. Alright, so we get a near perfect Blaziken start minus an energy. If we can top an energy here, we're actually setting pretty good. You'll notice I don't double set here. I don't want to put myself into a bad Warp Point situation or a Wilmer situation or something like that. So we're playing against a Dustox Mucky X deck. And while this seems like it should be pretty favorable, we do want to be careful here because Mucky X is not an auto win for Blaziken by any stretch of the imagination. But the plus side is it looks like I'm going to get a ton of value off of the Stevens Advice. Yep, he fills his bench. He's got a Sceptile in there too, so yeah, this is looking pretty good for us. Ideally, if he doesn't play the Muck down next turn, we should be alright. And it doesn't look like he's super heavy into the Muck. I go for Ditto there, then I remember Muck shuts off Ditto, so that is not going to be a good option for me. Just go with the Quad Torchics because we prize the Magnemite again. This seems to kind of be a recurring theme for me in this deck. So basically, my entire strategy here is just, if he doesn't put down a Muck EX this turn, then I am going to get a Blaze Kick off. But he does do the Muck EX. This is just absolutely horrible for me. I'm still going to go with the Blaziken EX strategy. I think that's the correct strategy, correct play. I know I'm going to get a lot of value out of that Stevens Advice. So I'm going to put the Stevens first, knowing I'm going to be able to draw the 6 cards. I got the switch just in case he does anything tricky. All in all, though, not a bad start by our opponent either. He's got the Skeptile. It's not going to get him very far with the Muck active. And you'll notice that I just start playing my hand down. The reason for this is in case he does play Desert Shaman, I want to play down as many cards as possible, like decrease the odds of me drawing into another Blaziken or another Torchic or something like that off of a Desert Shaman. I just want good cards left in my deck, supporters, energy, things like that. Alright, it looks like he's going the double Muck route. And my game plan for that is I'm going to try to Blaze Kick the first one and then Volcanic Ash the second. Now we pick up the Magnemite off the prizes, that's great. You'll notice I do burn both Friend Balls there. There's not going to be a ton of value with those. I want to thin my deck out as much as possible. Great Stevens advice from him. But with the Switch and Multi in hand, I'm going to get another Muck EX knockout on this upcoming turn. Alright, and then I'm going to have... Yep, setting up a second Blaze... Probably a Blaziken EX. There can be a Blaziken. Now, a couple of things here. This was a couple of questionable plays. One, you'll notice I do discard the 2 Fire Energy. I leave the Multi because I want those Fire Energies in the discard pile for Blaziken to Firestarter. The questionable play here was I went for the Energy. And I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, this is going to be the correct play. If you get a chance to, take out 2 energy, take out the 2 energy. That being said, though, we're playing against a fire-weak deck outside of the Muck EX. The Skeptile EX, whatever he was going to go for, was not a big threat to me. And I think a real argument could be made to knock out the Muck EX, take 2 prizes there, and guarantee that we have powers on the following turn because he wouldn't be able to play down, he would need a Grimer Rare Candy Muck or a Grimer Wallies to get another Muck into play, and even then we'll still have the Blaze Kick. So, getting rid of the energy, I don't know. I don't think either one is going to change the outcome of the game, but I will say you can make a strong argument for both those plays. Okay, opponent looked like they missed the energy drop. Kind of either they must have been having a rough hand there, and they kind of saw the way the game was going without being able to really pressure this Blaziken EX, and seeing the fire weakness, they went ahead and scooped the game there. Honestly, just kind of a rough matchup for the opponent. Half their deck is going to be weak to my deck, and then the Muck EX is I think turn 2 Muck is really strong because of the early pressure you're able to put on the opponent and all of the disruption cards you're able to play. But when you're playing a Dustox line and a Skeptile line, and you're spending, let's say, probably 12 to 14 spots on those additional lines, that's going to take away a lot of the Pokemon Reversal and ER2 spots that you'd have to play that disruption. So while they had Muck EX, I don't think they played a ton of disruption with it, and without having all that disruption, it's going to be very hard for them to deal with that Blaziken EX unless I got a really slow start and they got a really, really quick start, which is, fortunately for me, not how this game went. So, kind of an interesting deck, interesting strategy from him, but just seems like a pretty favorable matchup for us here.